everyone, I'm Mangino. Welcome to the Mangino Talks podcast. We talk about everything that matters to Pittsburgh, from current events to Pittsburgh history, social issues to sports, politics, to practical day-to-day life. And today, we're talking about John Fetterman. There have been these ongoing concerns about the senator and whether or not he is truly healthy enough to continue on in service for the entire country, for his constituents, and the state of Pennsylvania as a result of the stroke that he suffered a little over 1 year ago in the primaries from last year, and then the depression that he's been battling, and he went for treatment for earlier this year. And he's also getting a lot of attention because of how he continues to insist on being dressed. That it's one thing when you are the mayor of Braddock, right? It's another when you decide that that's the way you want to dress as the lieutenant governor, which is by and large a ceremonial position. And his claim to fame in that position was to running around the entire state promoting the smoking of weed. I mean, that's what he did. Granted, there were some work that he also accomplished when it comes to pardons and parole as the head of that commission. I don't know about you, but I genuinely expected that upon being elected U.S. Senator, that in the times that he would be called upon to act as a senator, that he would at least don a jacket and a shirt. I mean, not even so much the tie, but at least a jacket and a nice white shirt. Is that asking for too much? Apparently, with the senator, that happens to be. Just a few weeks ago, he spoke at a podium with other U.S. senators at the Capitol, and they're all dressed in suits and ties, and he shows up in a hoodie and his shorts. And what are you doing? What are you doing? And then most recently, over the weekend, he's in Philadelphia. He's meeting with the president and with the governor and other dignitaries, other elected officials, mayor of Philadelphia, members of Congress. And he stands out not only because he's as tall as he is, but because he's dressed like he just rolled out of bed. And I get that is the image. Okay, I don't know. That's the brand, I guess. So I'm going to stay true to the brand when it comes to Fetterman and his decision for clothes. But this is a major issue. And you would think that you would show up and dress for it. And is that asking for too much? Now, I posted this up on my Facebook page, and you can find me, Mangino Talks, if you're on Facebook. In fact, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the works. You can follow me on all of that. Just go and look up Mangino Talks. And I asked this question about the clothing and whether or not it's appropriate and whether or not this is something that he should be wearing. And then a photograph of him along with Senator Bob Casey and Joe Biden and others. And the level of excuse that people are willing to come up with is rather remarkable to me. Just leave him alone. Why? Why just leave him alone? Because he's politically on your side of the aisle? So there's no expectation? None? Another comment. The guy is who he is, and we who voted for him love him for it. A suit and tie are just not him. I don't know about you, but maybe that's what people did vote for him about. If you're going to vote for him because there's something that you say, okay, that is a quality that I want in the U.S. Senate, and it's to dress like that, that's what you think the U.S. Senate is missing? That there needs to be that level that comes to the Senate, and maybe they think too highly of themselves, and to an extent that they do. What they need is more dressed down Friday every day. Everybody ought to dress in the U.S. Senate as though they're working from home. Len says, I like him. Doesn't bother me. I interpret it as the difference between what is expected and what is enforced. Brian says they could all dress like that if it helped them and us remember why they're there. You think he's remembering why he's there? I don't have any great confidence that he's remembering why he's there, which is another aspect of this that we need to get to. But I think that by his insistence on dressing like this, it draws a level of attention toward him that at this point in time, he just can't afford. Now, the critics are going to be critics regardless of how he dresses. And that's true, right? Just because you have somebody in a suit doesn't mean, oh, wait, hold on a second. They've got a suit on. It's a rather expensive one. They have a tie. Looks like it's silk. We ought to give him a pass. Nobody's doing that. But you compound it, right? And then he recently spoke, which I think is the most concerning part for everyone in Pennsylvania. For everyone. Is he recovering sufficiently? Now, let's go back to the stroke from a year ago, May. And the word that we got from the doctors was that he was recovering. And he was recovering sufficiently. And that he needed some basic tools to help him. He needed to have a closed captioning of sorts for when he would have interviews to make sure that he got every word and that he would get hung up on a couple of words here and there. And these were just little crutches to be able to help him go through the process. And I was very conciliatory when it comes to that we have different modifications. I don't think that just because you have a language processing issue to where what you hear is not clear, you want to be able to see it too. I get that. As a man that's married to a woman who has profound hearing loss and uses cochlear implants, and everything that we watch with closed captioning, I've come to value and appreciate closed captioning when we watch just about everything. And the idea of having that as a modification didn't seem to be all that extreme to me. Then he had the debate with Dr.s, and then I made the comment on the radio the next day that I'd never seen anyone lose a debate and lose an election. And I thought for sure after that performance, there's no way that he could win an election. What we were all shown was that Oz had a difficult time resonating with the people of Pennsylvania. He also had the baggage that was associated with being Trump's handpicked person to run, and those that otherwise would have, I believe, voted for Oz if Trump hadn't said a thing about Oz, he would have won. But then again, he may not have won the primary in the first place if it wasn't for the kiss of death from Donald Trump. And so Fetterman wins. And now you go from that election victory, and he just looked as though he was completely lost. From the election all the way through into January, and we found out why, because he was dealing with depression. So much so, he went in for, nearly 2 months of treatment for depression. And since then, I don't know. You tell me. It doesn't seem as though that he is responding as well as we would like to see him respond for a person who's sitting in a position of the U.S. Senate. I have no ill will toward Fetterman. I mean, none at all. I think there is a credit that he is to be given for having the strength and the courage and the fortitude to continue on in the race. This commitment, this drive to continue doing that. I also commented back then he probably didn't have a full appreciation of how bad off he was because I had a traumatic brain injury and I didn't realize how bad off I was as I was going through different phases. And it wasn't until I got better that I was able to look back and say, oh, wow, I was really struggling there. And I think to some extent he may be dealing with the same thing. And I can appreciate and recognize the desire to want to keep on keeping on and keep on doing and fighting against the depression that he's struggling with and fighting to recover. But you have to ask yourself, I think he has to ask himself, is he doing the best job that can be done in service to his constituents, the entire population of the state of Pennsylvania, as a U.S. Senator, and for the entire country? I think it's important to bring up. And when you look at some of the things that he said, it's really concerning. You may have seen this, maybe not. Didn't get a whole lot of play. Some of the publications that covered his comments, whether it be in Philadelphia over the weekend or his comments from a Senate committee hearing last week, really tried to focus on what he was trying to say and not so much at all, some of them, on his inability to articulate what he was trying to say. And with that, I think there was a legitimate question as to whether or not somebody who struggles to articulate their ideas, is that a sign of some type of cognitive impairment? Maybe, maybe not. Even if it's not, what else are we to go with as voters, as citizens of this state? We can't trust the doctors, at least not the doctors that speak to us, because his doctors during the campaign from the stroke on gave us an indication that wasn't very clear, and no great surprise because that's not what he and his campaign wanted to project. I'm not even sure that we're getting a clear picture once that we all knew that he went in for depression, what they revealed to us during that time and what they've revealed to us since. We're just left with what we can witness for ourselves. And so I'm going to play two audio clips here. One of them is from his appearance with Joe Biden on Saturday in Philadelphia, where he was given an opportunity to give some impromptu comments regarding I-95, its collapse, and Biden's commitment to providing the funding and removing as many hurdles as possible from keeping this from being done as quickly as it possibly can be. And then the first one we're going to play is from last week. He's in a Senate committee hearing, and he was asked if he would like to give some comments regarding the I-95 collapse that happened just a few days earlier, anything that he would like to be able to say. And this is what Senator Fetterman said.
Earlier today, some comments about the tragic accident in on I-95, and if you want to make any comments with respect to that, feel free. You're recognized.
No, I would just really like to, the 95, obviously that, you're pretty much preoccupied with 95, and I know I certainly am too, and we know it's a major artery, not just for Pennsylvania, but for the East Coast. And a lot of Pennsylvanians are worried that the delays in repairs.
Major artery. No editing was done to that audio clip whatsoever. None. That was an opportunity that Senator Fetterman was given to have some comments, and the ability for him to just speak impromptu that way. Just not capable of doing it. Just not capable. And then on Saturday, he was given yet another opportunity to be able to speak. And he's at the podium. President Joe Biden is standing right next to him and just tentatively listening, almost expressionless on his face, as Senator Fetterman struggles once again to just be able to say something really simple and basic regarding I-95, its collapse, the commitment that is in place to get this thing built back up again on a state and federal level. And here, once again, Senator Fetterman from Saturday.
And now, I'm standing next to the president again, next to a collapsed bridge here, and he is here to commit to work with the governor and the delegation to make sure that we get this fixed quick, fast as well too. This is a president that is committed to infrastructure, yeah, and then on top of that, the dual kind of a law of the inflation bill that is going to make sure that there's going to be bridges all across like this, all across America getting rebuilt.
Once again, no edits. There are some people who will put out audio, video, and mash it up in such a way to make someone look bad. I have no desire to do that. This is just what the audio is in its rawest form. Once again, the critics will give no quarter. However, just because the other side is going to be harsh in their view of him doesn't mean that the left should not seriously consider the legitimacy of the points that are being made. That is he truly capable of fully fulfilling his duties as U.S. Senator? And I'm having my doubts. In fact, I don't know how someone that doesn't have this I'm taking my side, my team approach, and my team right or wrong, my team good or bad, I'm just going to defend my team. Outside of that, I don't know how people legitimately do that. Think about this for a second. We don't look at our favorite sport and our favorite sports team that way. How many of you fans of the Steelers? All of you? To some extent, the Pirates, the Penguins? But mostly it's about the Steelers, right? So as a Steelers fan, does that mean that you would never criticize your coach, the coaching staff, the ownership, and the players? Well, that's ridiculous. Well, what if one of your one of the fans of one of the teams that you hate the most, like you have fans with the Ravens, and they're saying all of these things about your ownership and coaches and players and how they're deciding to go ahead and run the team and run games. Just because they would be criticizing doesn't mean you say, oh, no, I can't acknowledge any of that because the evil Ravens fans are saying things like that. No. You make honest assessments based upon what you see and your support for and your devotion to your team, but you can still criticize it. But for whatever reason, in politics today, it's difficult to do that, if not impossible. And you have it in the extremes of both sides of the political aisle. And the only reason why you're seeing any aspect of criticism on the right side of the aisle is because you have a number of people who would like to be president of the United States and win the Republican nomination. But they're having a terrible time trying to figure out a way of criticizing somebody who's done something that if the other side of the aisle did, or they were right in the middle and unaffiliated with either side, they would absolutely destroy legitimately. Not just because of partisan politics, but legitimately. But they can't bring themselves to doing it. They're stumbling over it. And now you have people on the left that are doing exactly the same thing on behalf of Fetterman, feeling as though I have to defend him. Why? Because if I don't defend him, then all of a sudden I have to concede that Oz would have been a better choice. What the reality is, moving forward, what's the best choice? Not going back to the election of November, but what's the best choice that Governor Shapiro has? Is it with Fetterman or with the state, right? The entire country. And yes, even Democrats, the entire party, be better served with someone else in the U.S. Senate? That becomes the question. But most importantly, it's what's in our own best interest. What is best for us? And I'm not trying to discount what's in Fetterman's best interest and his family's, because that's obviously very important too. But when you decide to get into office and run for office, the expectation is that you make decisions that are in the best interest of those that you are there serving. And former Attorney General Bob Barr said over the weekend that Donald Trump is incapable of putting the interests of the country ahead of himself, either in true economic terms or just in ego terms. Well, at some point, somebody needs to be asking Fetterman that same question. Can you put the best interests of the state, of the country, ahead of your own ego? And I think that on a regular basis, the governor needs to be asked this question. Is he confident in Senator Fetterman and his leadership? I think political leaders need to be asked this and then held account for their answers. What do you think? Let me know. It's real simple. Send me an email. You can find me just by emailing me at mangino@manginotalks.com. You've been listening to the Mangino Talks podcast. New podcast drop every day, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. For more on me, the show, and anything you want me to talk about, be sure to visit manginotalks.com and send me an email. Once again, mangino@manginotalks.com. Follow me on your favorite social media platform by using @ManginoTalks, or you can just Google Mangino Talks. And once you find me, please like, follow, subscribe, and share the pages with your friends and family. And thank you again for listening to the Mangino Talks podcast.